All right, good afternoon and good morning. Welcome, everyone, to today's digital dialogue. Today, our conversation is titled Plugged In, How Cities Are Leading the Charge on EVs. My name is Rosa Davies, and I am Veloz's Business Development Director. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming you all to our conversation and to moderate the panel discussion. For those of you in the virtual attendance who are not familiar with Veloz, we are a national nonprofit comprised of 35 members from across the EV industry in both private and public sectors, who work together to advance transportation electrification for consumers and businesses around the country. We achieve this through a mix of industry-facing and consumer-facing programs, such as our national EV education campaigns, that's running in all 50 states, our industry-wide strategic communications working group, policy education efforts, and a host of other initiatives which highlight successful and replicable EV programs, including today's digital dialogue. So on that note, we're here today with a panel of inspiring leaders who work in cities around the nation to share the roadmaps, policies, and programs that have made their residents and local businesses confident to go electric. Now, this year, there's understandably been a lot of anxiety about changes in EV policy at the federal level, but there's an equally important part of the EV ecosystem, which is often overlooked, that is continuing the charge, pun intended, local agencies and their utility partners. Cities have a huge impact in all parts of our daily lives, and they have been working for the last 2 decades to make electric mobility more accessible and affordable for their residents and visitors alike. We all know how impactful municipal programs are, but it's maybe best encapsulated by our former Secretary of Transportation and himself a former city mayor, Pete Buttigieg, when he said, in local government, it's very clear to your customers, your citizens, whether or not you're delivering, right? Either that pothole gets filled in or it doesn't. The results are very much on display, and that creates a very healthy pressure to innovate. So today, we're going to start with a moderated panel discussion, followed by a Q&A section, where our speakers will take questions directly from the audience. So please drop any questions you have into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and don't forget to include who your question is aimed towards, as well as your name and affiliation. And all this being said, it is time to hear from these leaders themselves, so please join me in welcoming our amazing panel onto the virtual stage. Bobby Godsey, EV Community Engagement Manager with Austin Energy. Evan Johnson, Electrification Program Manager with the City of Pasadena. Jordan Losiak, Senior Business Program Manager with ComEd. And Alan Kennedy, Principal, Carbon-Free Transportation with the Rocky Mountain Institute. All right, my first question to each of you is to help ground our conversation today in the guiding principles behind your organization's approach to EV programs, your top line goals, and where you are in that journey. So let's kick it off with you, Evan. What are the City of Pasadena's overall EV goals, and how did that help to guide the programs which have led to an astounding 600x growth in registered EVs in the city over the last decade?
Sure. Thanks, Rosa. I think the city of Pasadena's main goal is to basically charge wherever you can. We have a live in charge, play in charge philosophy where wherever you go, whatever you do, you should be able to charge while you do it. So whether you're at home, at a park, at a library, or shopping, that you have the ability to charge your vehicle. We also want to make sure that we're inclusive of everyone. So whether it's fast charging, whether you have a charger at home, whether you have only access to chargers through multifamily, or you don't have access to chargers, the city wants to provide a place where either you can do that through your commercial workplaces or at city facilities. So multi-layered approach so that there's charging everywhere you go.
Awesome. Love that. Access is really important. Jordan, you're here to spotlight ComEd's work in the greater Chicago area. And I have to start with a huge congratulations for this month's announcement that your team is investing a further $70 million in EV incentives in Illinois. So talk to us about the commitments made under the Beneficial Electrification Plan and what that's achieved to date.
Yeah, thank you for the recognition. At ComEd, we are driving towards some pretty significant commitments. The biggest one is our goal of reaching 1 million EVs in Illinois by 2030. With this, to reach this goal in 2024, we launched 3 programs, really with a focus on those low-income EIEC communities, ensuring that they have the resources to achieve electrification for their fleets. Now, what those 3 entails for anyone that does not know, we do have a residential charging installation rebate. That's for any residential customer that's looking to get charging at their home. We do have 2 customer industrial programs, one being a make-ready infrastructure program that gets your site and your business ready to accommodate charging for your EVs. And then also the C&I EV rebates for vehicles themselves, which we also introduced in early 2024, really to help change from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. Now, our progress is a result of strong collaboration, not only with our energy service providers that help with our installations of charging. We also do have a dealer network that helps with the sale of those vehicles to customers, meeting them where they're at. We also do have the great support of the Illinois EPA, many other stakeholders that have supported us along the way. Now, underneath Beneficial Electrification Plan 1, which is before the $70 million that you just mentioned, we have distributed approximately $170 million in incentives across our programs. This includes incentivizing over 10,000 charging ports, and also 3,500 purchase or lease of EV vehicles. Now, as we move on to BE Plan 2, utilizing that $70 million, we do have a smaller budget than we did have in the past, but our commitment remains strong that we continue to push forward on the momentum we built in the last 3 years, and BE Plan 2 will run all the way until 2028. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a well-rounded and robust program. I know it's going to be very successful. Bobby, we know that the city of Austin has a goal to have 40% of all vehicle miles traveled by electric by 2030. So how does that inform Austin Energy's EV goals and programs?
Well, first, thank you for having me on.
Of
We
course.
love the Rocky Mountain Institute. We're big fans of theirs, and Evan and Jordan already have dropped some good information on everybody. I'll tell you a little bit about Austin Energy's journey. Austin Energy's EV team was created about 15 years ago. We are climate focused, environmentally focused in our cities that way. So our city leaders in our community help drive our goals that you're hearing about, like the 40% of all miles driven. But the biggest goal we have is to be net zero emissions by 2040. And so we have a climate protection plan, and it was recently updated in 2024. But 78% of our energy is already renewable. So the real focus is electric transportation, getting the tailpipes off the street, of course. And so our EV team has a 5-pillar strategy to kind of go after those climate protection plan goals that our city initiated. And the 5-pillar strategy is simply charging infrastructure, which Evan talked about the importance of that, equity and affordability, fleet and new mobility, and then outreach and education, and of course, grid integration. And a few examples of that are charging infrastructure. So we've been around for 15 years. So our first level 2 charging stations went into the community late 2013, early 2014. So we have over 1,400 charging ports, level 2, over 30 fast chargers in the community, just in our public network, which is very solid. Equity and affordability, we've got it focused on that. We hired a great teammate, Amy Ashley, about 10 years ago, and she helped us look at all our programs through an equity lens. There's a saying that if all your zip codes don't have charging station opportunities for the community, then you're never going to reach net zero emissions. So we're very inclusive in our community. Fleets and new mobility, we have over 400 electric cars and trucks in our fleet already. We'll talk more about that later. And we have one of the best e-ride programs in the country. Specifically, our electric bike program is great. And then outreach and education. I don't know if y'all know about Stevie, the EV-loving T-Rex, but we had Stevie a few years ago on the team that went viral. They've since retired. We also have these great electrics greater than gas shirts that the community loves. And if anybody has good questions virtually today, I'll throw you a virtual shirt. And then we also have a buyer's guide that we developed in 2019 And the buyer's guide's unique in this sense. It has real-time data from local dealerships about new and used vehicles on the lot each day and how much they sell for. So you can go to that buyer's guide in our community and find your favorite neighborhood dealership and what they have for new and used vehicles. It's in Spanish and English as well. And it's super popular. In 2025 alone, there was 36,000 new users to that buyer's guide. So we're proud of that. And then grid integration. Obviously, we all know grid integration is so important, and this is a lot of energy coming on the grid. So we've developed programs, most recently the Power Partner program, that allows our customers to join the program, get credits on their bill, and allow us to manage that high demand time throughout the year. So excited about being on the call today with everybody, but that climate protection plan is really our city's goal and our city's roadmap.
Awesome. I mean, I really love your 5-pillar strategy here. And, I've spoken with you before, Bobby, so I know about Stevie. If the folks on this call haven't, just do, after this, Google Stevie, the T-Rex, Austin Energy, and it's one of the best mascots out there. Absolutely.
Thank you. Fun.
Yeah, it really is. EVs are fun. Alan, RMI has a long history of working with cities around the country to advance access to EVs. Can you give us some examples of how a holistic approach to clean transportation allows for more equitable progress?
Yes, I can. So RMI is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that's been working for over 40 years now to decarbonize transportation and energy. And I can't emphasize enough how important a holistic approach is in this work. I'd actually like to share 4 of our biggest takeaways from transportation project work that help to frame that kind of approach. One is to think multimodal. Electrification isn't just about cars, and it can't be just about cars. We're not looking for one replacement on our roads. We're looking to achieve entire system and design shifts to support smaller electrified modes, such as electric assisted bikes and scooters, all the way up to electrified buses. So thinking much more multimodally. 2 would be plan and build for an electric future. From our roadways to our buildings, we need to be more inclusive and forward thinking about how people get to where they need to go. We can't only design for the most prevalent mode of the past century. We need to allocate space for all modes to operate and to also charge safely. So it's much harder and costlier to retrofit than to incorporate these principles from the beginning. So our plans and codes need to reflect commitment to an electric future. 3rd thing is to incorporate solutions that bridge the gap, recognizing that every community is on its own trajectory with regard to transportation electrification. Planning, zoning, regulatory context may all be different, but it's important to think about how the ultimate long-term goals can be achieved through short and midterm solutions. For instance, the residents of lower income multifamily communities have told us that adding charging isn't necessarily enough for them. But adding charging in a shared mode, such as an electric vehicle or electric assisted bike, can immediately unlock their access, the value to them, and cost savings. The 4th thing, and one of the biggest things for people to hear right now, is just get started and commit to keep going. We recognize that political shifts are happening and will continue to happen, but the future is electric. It's cheaper. And yes, I know this is a point of contention, but anyone who wants to follow up with me later, I can give you nifty charts and numbers and all sorts of things. It's better for the environment and human health, which we all know. And the technology is simply amazing. The circular economy potential is outstanding. So this is work that is very well worth doing.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that it's, electrification, transportation isn't quite cookie cutter yet, right? There are going to be nuances and uniqueness that each city has that needs to be addressed as we move forward. Bobby, let's get it back to you. But before off, to kick off our conversation about EVs, I want to first deep dive into a part of the EV ecosystem where cities and local utilities have a big impact. That's charging both at home and around town. So Bobby, let's talk about home charging first. You mentioned it earlier. Austin Energy's home charging programs provide an ecosystem of support for their customers. What does Austin Energy offer, and how has the program evolved over time?
Well, again, we've been around for 15 years, so our home charging program is really about single family homes, but also multifamily properties. And so I'll talk about home charging first. Probably 12 or 13 years ago or so, we launched our rebate program for home charging, and that was up to 50% of the cost of the installation of the equipment, and we capped it at $1,500 per household. We've since gone down on the cap a bit to 1,200 because just technology and pricing's gone down. But it was really just to kind of help offset the cost and encourage EV adoption early on. And we've slowly phased lower on that program today. We average, to kind of give y'all some information on it, we average about $750 per rebate. So we don't really reach the cap very often at all. And then also, I told you earlier about the Power Partners program we launched, but
Right.
that program is really about, encouraging our customers to think when they charge and what the best plan is to charge during off-peak times, and we reward them for that on their bills. So we've kind of gone from rebating hardware only to actively engaging with the customers to create grid partners per se. But if we're really going to move the needle in Austin, and I think throughout the country has this real kind of opportunity in front of them, it's multifamily. And how do we get charging infrastructure get put in multifamily? Everybody on this call probably knows electric vehicle drivers want to charge at home. They want to charge at night. And so we've worked with our apartment association in particular. We've been members for years, so we participate in their trade shows. And most recently, I did a lunch and learn last week or 2 weeks ago with the community managers and owners of properties, and it's been real successful. We also use their channels of communication to market our EV programs and our commercial rebates. We have a commercial rebate for multifamily that allows them to add level 2 chargers or fast chargers, and it's up to 50% of the cost of the equipment and installation. And it's a cap of 3,000 on level 2, and it's a cap of 5,000 on fast charging. But we also see there's an opportunity for level 1 charging out there as more and more people find that they just don't drive as much as they think in miles. So multifamily is super important. I'll finish with recently our team worked with our green building team at Austin Energy, and they developed a new city code that was passed by our city council and mayor, and it requires all new buildings of multifamily to have EV readiness or EV infrastructure readiness available when they open. So, and it's requirement of 40% of all parking spaces need to be EV ready. We're proud of that, but what that also does, anybody who knows multifamily or apartment communities, they want to add all the amenities, the new amenities that their neighbors are adding. And so this kind of shows them that the city's focused on it. It's happening. New buildings that are coming in around their neighborhoods, around their apartments are adding this infrastructure. And so they need to come back and retrofit their properties as well. So all great stuff, but really it's about cheaper, smarter, and being grid friendly.
Yeah, it's a hot amenity having an EV charger.
It's hot. It's hot.
All right, Jordan, it seems like every day we hear about a new charging hub in Chicago, right? With the recent opening of the BP Pulse Hub at O'Hare Airport to the Iona Rechargery at Casey's. How does your team balance the influx of EV charging related interconnection requests? And what do you think has been the key to successfully serving a wide variety of businesses asking for different levels and amounts of power?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, the rapid growth of EV charging hubs in Chicago definitely has drawn a surge in interconnection requests. We manage that volume really by engaging early with customers, understanding their true power needs, and also their timelines. This again helps us just really to prioritize those projects and right size them for that particular customer. We do have tools which is up and live on our webpage, such as our capacity planning map, where customers can see where we may have a little additional supply and a little bit more of an easement getting into some of their infrastructure and power needs. I think the real key to success here has just been our team's flexibility and coordination with supporting customers to build out and close some gaps in their needs here, utilizing our internal team that's dedicated to just this for charging. And also, of course, reaching out to customers, ensuring that they are future-proofing their properties. We might have a customer that may just want 1 port, 2 ports, looking for bigger demand. We give them the tools so they can right size for their needs at that moment, but also giving them the option to future-proof if need be.
Yeah, grid, as a former charging gal, grid capacity maps are a godsend when planning out. So I'm sure those are being very useful. Evan, the city of Pasadena has over 100 city-owned and operated charging stations, both level 2 and fast charging. So how does your team balance how much to invest in city-owned public charging and how to partner with private sector for commercially owned charging stations?
Sure. The city's approach really is just multi-layered. We really want to try to take advantage of every opportunity that we can. I think Bobby said it before that he had a lot of support from his management and from his city council, and Pasadena is very much the same, right? We have a lot of very engaged residents, and they tell us very vocally what they would like. And that goes to city council and then goes to our management. So we have a lot of direction and a lot of input, which is great. The way public charging works for us is that we really love this load managed level 2 system in a lot of locations, right? Some folks want to really build out the level 3, and we do love to build out level 3, and it's highly utilized level 3. But we have a unique opportunity because we are a public owned utility, so that we do have an abundance of solar energy in Southern California during the day. So in our commercial areas, we actually have some room for some capacity there, which is great for us. We have a commercial EV rebate. We give up to $100,000 per commercial customer at $4,000 per port to invest in chargers for their workers and for their customers. So we think about, what's the customer experience, right? And I think that in the past, it's been, let's charge at home. It's really easy to go home and plug in. But where else do cars park for long periods of time? And that's typically at work. So we really would like to encourage someone that can't have a charger at home to be able to have access to a charger at their workplace. So the city employs over 2,000 people. So we like to try to, test on ourselves. So we've been building out our fleet network, which would include chargers for city employees. And then we use that as a model that's scalable, that we can show other customers, other large commercial customers in Pasadena. This is how we've done it. Here's how we can also help you and then provide an incentive. So those things are great for us. The second thing is, where else people like to go? They like to go to parks. They like to go to libraries. They like to go to eat. And we like to right size the charging speed for where people are going to be. If they're going to be there for an hour or two, make sure the charger can accommodate that speed level. If they're going to be there for 4 or 5 hours for a soccer tournament, we like to right size those locations as well. So really what it is, it's trying to figure out where people are going, how long are they going to be there for, how can we put a charger in that space that's easy. I think the best compliment a city person can get is that no one thought about the charging experience, right? They went, they did it, they didn't have any issues, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I charge all the time. I never thought about it really, right? Because it's not something that's an impediment to how they live their life. So if they can go and do whatever they want to do while they do it without having to think about where to charge, how long to charge, am I on enough juice to get back? I think those are the kind of the things that show that we're doing a good job, is that when people are like, I've never thought about it in Pasadena, actually. It's just always a charger wherever I need to go and how I need to use it. So I think that's what we're really trying to, have as a standard, is that people think charging is easy. And that's what we want to have happen, right? So we do give rebates for residential. We do give rebates for commercial. We do provide booklets and tips. We also partner with Veloz, which is great, to show people like how to get incentives from the city. And it's been a really great process. Obviously, a lot of learning, especially with level 3. But we just keep improving and we keep building. And then now we're starting to build programs off of our systems now, so we can provide income qualified charging to our residents, right? So sometimes people always say that it's not really equitable, that you can charge for home at 22 cents, but you go to a station, it's not the same price. So we're looking at trying to figure out, once we have these tools in place, how do we make it equitable for everyone as well?
Yeah, that's really important. And I completely agree with the charging experience. You don't want it to be eventful. You want it to be boring. And as far as the chargers in the workplace, yeah, I think you got to be the change that you want to see. And so Pasadena taking the first step to provide workplace charging is great. Alan, last year, RMI partnered with GM and cities around the nation to develop strategies which proliferate curbside charging solutions. Talk to us about some of the challenges your team is working to overcome.
It's surprising and continues to surprise me how many challenges there really are when you're working inside of this space. Curbs are
Yes.
such a hive of activity, and there are so many different stakeholders inherent in this work that some of the things are very basic, like what are the different available business models and ownership models? Because cities might think, oh, we're going to be responsible for all of this, when really that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And so that's a place to start with, just level setting understanding, as well as just the available technology options where, curbside and pole mounted charging can happen in a number of different ways and draw from different energy sources. But, the important thing to try to achieve is avoiding the extension cord out the window, down the building, aside, across the sidewalk, and somebody gets clotheslined as they're walking by. That is
Yeah.
not the ideal model. So, really working inside of the frames to figure out what's context sensitive and the best technology option to fit this space is important. Developing permitting processes and regulations that help to streamline permitting, because I know that many of us
Right.
have worked inside of how lengthy and complicated it can be. And, there's a lot of frustration that can take place as people are just waiting to get permits issued. But there is a lot that can be done. Actually, we worked with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council on planning and zoning guidance to help expedite EV charger deployment. And so that's a good resource to look at in terms of how to think differently about these processes and how to make them more efficient. Another challenge is just the engagement piece. Talking to individuals and community members to understand where their needs and priorities sit. What are they actually looking to charge? Sometimes it's not an electric car. What feels accessible to them? What feels safe to them in terms of the physical environment, the lighting? How do we avoid clashes over parking spaces? Because curbside and pole mounted charging are typically placed in areas where parking is already limited. And so it can be a real hot topic within the community, but engagement can go a long way to helping to address and avoid some of the pitfalls in the process. I'd say also just bringing together the necessary stakeholder groups, working interdepartmentally is critical. Having all of these different city departments at the table, working really, really closely with your electric utility, as well as with private businesses, recognizing that this has the opportunity to help their business and to serve their business goals. It's really important to get all of those stakeholders at the table while also understanding the dynamics, the restrictions that exist in that curb space, so that you can be really upfront and honest with people about what's possible, what's not possible, and how to bring disparate viewpoints together to ultimately create something that's a new public service.
Yeah, I agree. We got to widen the lens and let in those voices in. And permitting has its ups and downs. It's gotten better, but yeah, there's still absolutely improvement that needs to go there. Pushing ahead a little bit now, having spoken about EV charging, it behooves us to also discuss the measures taken by cities and local utilities to incentivize the adoption of EVs themselves. So, Alan, I'm just going to stick with you. Research shows that the upfront cost of an EV is the number one barrier to adoption, and that's exacerbated by the country experiencing an affordability crisis. In an effort to help tackle that barrier, RMI has some funding from GM to ideate business models that would provide low-income communities with car share programs. Can you share more about these conversations with us?
Yes, and I mean, huge, huge thanks to GM for their support of this work, because it's incredible how it can really impact communities of different sizes. We've been working with different communities both to look at how to establish new car share operations and how to grow existing operations, with the emphasis on electric vehicle car share.
Right.
We've been coordinating with different operators to understand how they've successfully kept their programs running, as well as what they did to get their programs going from the start. So, I mean, car share's been around long enough for people to understand some basic best practices, but the aha moment is really in understanding it isn't just major metro areas that can benefit from this kind of service. Smaller scale operations that are tailored to specific community goals and mobility needs, it's really important to think about how to work with them too. And in many cases, this is happening where transit isn't readily available and the cost burdens of a personally owned mode are just too high. So for cities that want to add another tool in their transportation toolkit, car share can be a great option. And it may not mean having a widespread operation at the start. It may mean starting on a much smaller scale, and that's okay. It's important just to keep in mind, what staffing and financial commitments will be, needed in order to ensure sustained operations over time. So in some of this, we've learned that college towns can be great places where, there are a number of students that are bringing their cars to town and then their cars just sit and take up parking and they aren't used very often. But many more students don't have a personal mode of transportation. So wherever public transit can't quite get them to, car share can really, really be of value to them, just when transit isn't an option. We've also learned that there are many more cities that want to do this work, if they have the right resources to do it. So, working with states to see if grant programs can be created to support this, can be very beneficial. But the financial support isn't the only piece of it. Working with operators, working with community members, site hosts, utilities, again, to build a program that's durable and to get that commitment on the local level to keep these, to get the programs going, but to keep them growing over time is equally as important. So it takes shared vision, it takes a shared level of commitment among this group of stakeholders to really get started.
Yeah, just like chargers, EV programs cannot be stranded assets. They got to be able to keep going. I completely agree there. Evan, Pasadena tackles affordability by offering a used EV rebate to income qualified residents. Is this incentive heavily utilized, and what has been the outcome of this rebate program?
Sure, yeah. So our used electric EV rebate is basically to just keep promoting the fact that we think that these are just great vehicles, right? So
Right.
the one thing that's really going to really drive, I think, universal adoption is the secondary market, right? So we have all of these vehicles coming out. Before it was a big affordability issue where you just couldn't afford an EV. They're just really expensive. But now we're going to have a lot of EVs that are in the secondary market. So now we have all of these options to buy cars that are a few years old. And we think that it's a great idea to do that. So we're providing options and education and outreach to really promote someone as saying, hey, as a second car, or if you're ready, looking in the market for a car now, to really understand what EVs can do. They're actually just really good vehicles, right? And for city driving and for commutes around the LA area, people typically drive about 40 miles a day or so. They're just a great option. And I think people kind of don't understand enough about how it can save them on the mechanic costs in the long run, also on the just daily cost to fuel a vehicle. So we try to use this as a way to promote, to also kind of open the door for conversations about electric vehicles. And we just think it's a really good option that's needed to have more mass adoption. The average person tries to buy a vehicle for around $7,000 or so in California. That's just not possible anymore, right? With some of the vehicles, I think every vehicle price is going up. So now I think the average used vehicle price is around $15,000. And we just feel that just trying to figure out how to help them, I think that another person on the panel talking about having the buyer's guide, that's such an amazing proactive idea to really help people look at, what's out there, how can it meet their needs. And we're trying to do the same thing, just trying to figure out how do we reach people, how do we show them what's out there, and how can they think about what's their next vehicle and how can it really help them and their family, especially when it comes to affordability.
Yeah, time will prove this, but EVs are probably going to last longer than ICE cars. And so the secondary market is going to get bigger and bigger. And yes, another shout out to Bobby and Austin Energy for that EV buyer's guide. Jordan, your organization heavily incentivizes EV purchases by with fleets in them. What has been successful for your fleet managers? Point of sale rebates, rental programs, long-term financing, and a follow-up for you. What are the key differences in your light duty and medium heavy duty EV fleet incentive programs?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think I'm going to build off of what Evan stated. We also do allow pre-owned vehicles and leases of vehicles, which has heavily influenced our customers' decision into jumping into the EV market. One of the other things that's been really big for us is adding a point of sale rebate program. We started off with a mighty dozen trained dealers that were able to provide an instant discount at point of sale. With that, it took a lot of the upfront costs, a lot of the worry out of customers' minds, being able to access those funds right off the bat, reducing their costs for, again, those used vehicles, new, leased, was definitely a big helpful source. We started off, again, as mentioned, with a mighty dozen. We're up to 180 dealers and OEMs, reflecting roughly 1/3 of Northern Illinois' car markets. So customers have multiple places to go. Again, gives them a little bit more incentive to go to their local dealer and check out an EV. So this has been huge for us. Really, the differences that we see between the light duty and the medium duty is really the incentive levels. With the medium and heavy duty, we might do a little bit more hand holding on the applications. We also do understand that inventory is not as abundant as it is in the light duty sector, to where we might need to work with them to get their application in a timely manner. Now, ultimately, our goal is to ensure that both small, large fleet operators, they all have pathways to electrification. We want to support them by providing upfront savings. We want to make sure that we're streamlining dealer engagements so that they're able to reach out to dealers for any questions they have on our programs and ensure that we do have a support line to answer any questions that may arise.
Yeah, love that. Looks like you're providing a great amount of education and resources. And we can't talk about cities and EVs without addressing the efforts taken to electrify their own fleets, which we know comes with its own sets of challenges and opportunities. So Evan, when you're procuring city-owned EVs and developing a fueling strategy, are you mostly utilizing behind the fence charging depots where the vehicles return to base, or do you also utilize public charging infrastructure?
We use a mixture of both, but we have primarily a behind the fence investment in chargers right now. So the way that we've worked is we have over 100 chargers for our fleet. We have about 130 electric vehicles right now, and we're just getting ready to get our first shipment of 6 medium duty step vans in about a month or two. So we're really looking forward to seeing this medium heavy duty transition as well. So again, we have the same strategy for fleet as we do for the public. Where do cars park for long periods of time and how can we charge them where they park? So for most of that in the city of Pasadena, it's at our city yards, and we have over 52 level 2 chargers there, and we have 4 fast chargers as well for quick turnaround times. But we are just starting to work with our new back office provider to basically have a system that any fleet vehicle can charge at any of our public sites, and they still will be recorded for billing purposes later so that we can kind of recapture those costs for our department. So we are going to switch over within a few months to have this really nice option that kind of is more flexibility with our charging. So some folks don't have dedicated chargers where they park, and some do. But the ones that don't will now have options to utilize any public station under our entire network. And we have a network of about 300 chargers total. So 60 fast chargers and about 240 level 2. So this is going to add capability to our city. As everyone kind of knows, Pasadena was part of these fires and last year in January, and we kind of realized very quickly that we need to be a little bit more flexible in how we operate, especially during emergency situations. So having capability to have more access to some of the fast chargers is important. And so we are kind of pivoting a little bit to providing more flexibility for how we build, especially when it comes to emergency operations.
Yeah, absolutely. So the charging's got to be uneventful, as we discussed earlier, but it's also got to be easy. People need to be able to move around and charge in multiple places. Completely agree with that. Jordan, what are some of the ways in which ComEd provides CapEx relief programs and OpEx reducing measures to support the transition to electric fleets? And how do you account for a fleet that electrifies in multiple phases?
Yeah, I think on the CapEx side, it's really our rebates for the three core programs, whether it's 2,500 for a residential charging rebate, if we're getting 500,000 for a big infrastructure program for our make ready rebates, or if it's 240,000 for a school bus in our area. It helps to again keep capital costs low for any of our fleet managers, school districts. And then on the OpEx side, we have this great fleet energy assessment program to where our team of engineers will meet at no cost to the customer. We'll meet with them just to go over their charging, their ROI, what's best suited for future proofing their spaces, looking at their current fleets, if it's diesel, if it's propane, how they're going to save on energy costs. That's really how we look at the OpEx side. I want to ensure that we are giving them long-term success as they transition into electric vehicles. And then I'm sorry, the second part of your question was I'm missing that portion here.
That's okay. How do you account for a fleet that electrifies in multiple phases?
Oh yeah, we love that. So yeah, if it's just dipping their toes in, if they're just doing one bus or if they're just doing two charging ports,
Exactly.
we talk with them. We say, okay, let's get our toes wet. Let's get in the pool a little bit here. If there's any expansion or anything that we're looking to do in the future, let's make sure the infrastructure is in place. But we again give them support. If they just want to try it out, we're here. But if you want to do your whole fleet, we'll be happy to help you with that as well.
Yeah, it's a kind of it's a twist on future proofing, right? Let's do a little bit at a time and then only bring in the relevant load. Bobby, last year the city announced they saved, when I say the city, Austin, they saved 2.5 million from their transition to EVs in just fuel and maintenance costs, and that they're going to keep going, especially with their medium and heavy duty vehicles. As their energy provider, what charging strategies will support this continued savings with their medium and heavy duty EVs?
Well, I've been listening, and again, I'm glad to be on this panel with such smart people. But the what we've learned quickly that and we have I mentioned this earlier, over 400 electric vehicles in our fleet, and we learned quickly that that the fuel and maintenance cost has been lower and better than we expected as far as saving money for the city. It's interesting because it's just not about sustainability now. We're actually being smarter
Right.
financially with our budget, our city budget, because of this. And Rosie, you said it a minute ago. I think you're right. I think we're going to find that these cars and trucks are going to be in our fleet longer and they won't expire as soon as gas-powered vehicles. So I think there's more savings to come. We're excited about it. We also have pilots that we're doing in our city. We have a garbage truck that we're piloting right now. We have, I think, 4 police cars that we're piloting, and then our city's just full of fleets. Y'all know about Waymo. We have a very strong Waymo population here, and they're having a battle right now with the robo-taxis. So the robo-taxis are in town. And we have delivery vehicles, obviously. All of us have the Amazon and the Walmart trucks that are coming through. We have electric buses as well. I think Jordan talked about that, but we have electric buses and both our schools and also our public transportation system. So Cap Metro, they purchased, I think, the largest North American purchase in 197 electric buses a few years ago. And so far, I think we have 45 of those in operation. So our team, to answer your question, Austin Energy focuses on a charging strategy for these fleets. And somebody mentioned it earlier on in the conversation, but there's a lot of power there's a lot of power that's going to be invested in these fleets. And for us, it's about helping the charging infrastructure and how to right size that infrastructure, and also not overbuild or underbuild. And so we have some great people on our team. The Austin Energy EV team is very passionate. We got a couple of people that work in our fleet, focus on our fleet programs, and help these people work on their strategies as they install charging infrastructure. Clay and Zach on our team do that, and they're much smarter than me about it. But that's our focus. Um, Electrifying fleets is not about just buying the cars and the trucks. And we we had the Ford Lightning, which was amazing, and now we've added the Silverado trucks. And as y'all know, Texas loves our trucks, and so one of our programs is called EVs for Schools, and we actually take those fleet vehicles, like the trucks, especially the trucks, and we take them to the schools and show them off to the kids, and it's been a hit. So there's a side hustle you can have with your fleet vehicles, but yeah, it's about operating them intelligently for the environment, but also the grid and the savings that it provides to our city.
Yeah, absolutely. On those, agree on those cost savings. And yeah, you got to right size today and you got to plan for tomorrow. And I love that you're building future EV enthusiasts over there in Austin. Next question is for everybody. Almost 20% of Americans are living in apartments today. And one of the core barriers to transportation electrification has been the access to EV charging at multi-unit dwellings. What solution has this group seen deployed that helps address this?
You're talking about multifamily specifically.
Right, right.
I'll just say one thing and I'll be quick about it. But um, you, you, I have somewhat of a hotel background, multifamily, and you know their bonuses, the manager's bonuses are based on how they perform each year. And so you got to think 2 years ahead or a year and a half ahead. So you have to educate them, help them understand it, and then they have to put it on their budgets for the next year to make it happen. So it doesn't happen overnight. So I've learned that education is really, really key to the managers and the owners. And then we developed a pilot program some years ago, and we're actually going to launch another pilot here soon. I can't tell you completely about it yet, uh, but essentially it was about um, providing a huge rebate up to 80% for cost of installation of the equipment and the installation, uh, and getting them, like I think Jordan said it, getting their feet wet, right? And so we get their feet wet a little bit. They get a charging station there, and then they see how that retains that uh, tenant for them, that resident, and also we see that, or they hopefully see that it also brings in new residents. And so if we can just get them to put one charging station in, and that's why that pilot program became so popular, and it was a hit. We actually used up all the funding for it. But so I think education's key, giving them, teaching them early about it, and then also if we can get just their feet wet, like Jordan said, I think that would make the difference.
Absolutely. And Ellen, I know already answered this question in depth through yours. So Jordan, Evan, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I have to say I completely agree with Bobby. Education is key for this. One thing in addition that we're doing here at ComEd is carving out space for those fleet energy assessments that I mentioned earlier, specific to those multifamily dwellings. That's something that we're looking to dive deeper into, learn more about, and again, just get more customer data on how we can best suit those multi-resident units.
And for Pasadena, I think again, it's education and showing people that it can be done. I think that um, once they can see that it's possible, I think providing incentives is really important for multifamily. It is really the most challenging space for us here in the city because a lot of people that own the property says, "Oh, well, what's my benefit to this, right?" And you kind of really have to show them that, hey, your tenants want this. You're going to have great tenants because of it. Your property values are going to go up because of it, and we can show you how this works, right? So I think once we get more people doing it, then we use those as examples, and then we highlight those folks either in like newsletters we send out through the city about what people have been doing, and really kind of really singing their praises of folks that are trying out some of these new incentives that we're trying. We also have to be very flexible and kind of really think about updating. Every year we do kind of a round robin with our internal staff about what's the right incentive price, right? How do we teach them? How do we provide brochures? So really being flexible and saying every year, I mean, this space is changing so rapidly in the number of equipment I think the big thing for me is load management, right? That's really shifted in the last 5 years, right? We can really say, hey, listen, you can actually don't need a power upgrade to put in 4 or 5 chargers because you can use load management in your home and just use the 200 amps you have available on your house meter. So I think really showing folks what technology is doing in this space is really helpful to understand that, hey, you can do this now without, investments that are beyond what our incentives provide.
Yeah, really appreciate that more
And
technical
Rosa,
answer.
I'd say the
Yeah.
one thing I'd add to this is that the possibilities don't end at the property lines. So, an
Okay.
increasing number of multifamily properties are being built without any sort of parking minimum. And so, or even where parking is tight and it's just not going to be possible to put charging either because of the parking configuration or because you've got limited panel capacity or whatever the site constraint might be. Look to partners around the sites. Look at what's possible on the curb. Look at, neighboring properties and see how you might establish partnerships there. It's a really good time to get to know your neighbors and to talk about what's
Yeah.
possible for mutual benefit.
Absolutely. We're not just going to our neighbors for a cup of milk anymore, guys. We're going over for some EV help. Well, all right, folks, after having made you seriously discuss the topic for almost an hour, I want to ask one more question before we go into questions for our audience. I would love to hear a fun fact or weird tidbit about your city that you can share with us. So, Bobby, I'll start with you, and then let's hop over to Ellen, Jordan, and wrap with Evan.
All right, mine will be quick. So a few years ago, 7 years, or no, 8 years ago or so, I was working on our team wanted to create kind of the sustainability showcase, sustainable mobility showcase in the city. And so I started working with the city leaders, and we met a few times, and we found a street that we could create this hub at. And so my
Yeah.
team worked on it, and I was kind of tasked with managing that project. And so we got 8 fast chargers down there. We got a level 2 charger. We have this great solar kiosk that's powered completely by the sun, but it'll power your bike or your scooter or your cell phone. And we have electric bike share down there. So it's a cool street. We take people down there on tours and show it off, and it's worked out great. Well, I wanted to change the street name, and so our team came up with some ideas. And my manager at the time, Carl Popham, said, "Yeah, make that happen, Bobby." I didn't know it was as complicated as it was. I grew up in the '80s, y'all. So what do you think my street name was going to be? Electric Avenue, right? That was going to be my. If y'all grew up in the '80s, you know about that song, Electric Avenue. Well, 911 said that was taken, so I had to, or I couldn't use it, so I had to use something else. So our team came up with Electric Drive, and we went in front of the council. So what I wanted to share was, and this is an example of our city leaders, and this was 8 years ago. We took it in front of the city council and we asked them if we could change the street name from West Second Street to Electric Drive, and they voted that it was 10 council members and a mayor, and they voted 11-0 to change the street name. It was the only thing that year that everybody voted for and passed. Every other thing that came in front of council was 8-2 or 8-3 or whatever. But this was 11-0. So it just shows you Austin and the city leadership and how it's been over the years. So come down to Electric Drive, y'all.
I will. Let's see. And then who is next? Ellen.
Well, I am based in Phoenix, Arizona, and Phoenix is also tends to be known for its record heat. Yes, I did live through the 122-degree day.
Oh my gosh.
I'd say, something special about it is that it sits right in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, and the Sonoran Desert is the only place where you can find the saguaro cactus in the wild. And people tend to take this for granted, but they are the ancients of our environment. They don't start growing arms until they're at least 50 years old. So if you see a cactus waving at you, it takes a whole new meaning to respect your elders because that is a special experience.
I didn't know that. That is a cool tidbit. Jordan, what you got?
I'll give you a 2-for-1. It might be an opinion and not a fact, but the opinion is that Chicagoland area, which I'm born and raised in, does have the best thin crust pizza in the nation. Again, emphasis on thin. We're known for the stuffed, but thin is equally as good. And then a fact I will give is for those of you not from the Midwest or Chicagoland area, our Chicago River, which in a few weeks from now will be dyed green for St. Patrick's Day, actually goes in reverse. So 126 years ago, to prevent airborne diseases, engineers came up with a method to reverse the river so it wasn't dumping into Lake Michigan, which led to massive expansion of our urban density in downtown Chicago. So I think it's relevant to today's conversation that we're still here working on those airborne diseases and illnesses, again, cleaning up pollution with our electric vehicles. So I'll leave you with that fact.
Love it. Evan?
I am a big fan of history and sports, so I want to give everyone a
Okay.
sports fact. Everyone kind of turns their eyes to Pasadena on January 1st every year. The first game was actually played in 1923 on New Year's Day, USC versus Penn State. So we've been playing football here for over 100 years. And in 2028, we're going to be hosting the third Olympics in the LA region, and we're going to be having some of those games played right here at the famous Rose Bowl.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, now it's time for our audience Q&A. And to help do that, I'd like to invite Veloz's head of business development, Mooney Krishna, to come onto the stage.
Awesome. Thanks, Rosa and panelists. Loved all those fun facts. Let me share mine. I'm from the city of San Francisco, so we have fog that comes in every day, and we have lovingly named that fog Carl. So that's a little fun fact about my city. Our audience is bursting with questions. Let's get right into them. So we got a lot of folks here, panel from city and state agencies, and they're wondering what are some specific actions your leadership or colleagues have taken that really helped propel your programs in the early days or made them more successful as they were developed?
I'll jump in quick on this one. I think the couple things that happened was that we got a lot of support from city council and actually provided funds to start building chargers, right? I think the second thing was that the state's low carbon fuel standard program really kind of kicked off in California with us having the ability to get more funds. Again, we are a public owned utility, so we're able to kind of capitalize those funds to keep investing in infrastructure, education, and outreach early on. So I think those things, having the management, the leadership also put funds to back up these programs, I think that was an important start to keep going. And we've seen that it's kind of snowballing into bigger and better things. So those investments are continuing and ongoing. And again, like I mentioned before, they change every year so that we're actually really effective in kind of how we spend those dollars.
It's really great, Evan. Really appreciate that.
I just would like to add that that one of the things we learned the hard way. So we started early on, and we had I believe a grant from the energy department, and we installed 113 level 2 stations, probably back in 2013, 2014. But we found that we made the decision on where to place them throughout the community. And we realized some would never get used, some would get used often. And it was a hard lesson for us. But I think it's important for cities to create those roundtable discussions with the community, have those nights out with the community and embrace their thoughts and what they want. The mistake I think we make as city leaders and city employees is we think we know what they want, and it's good to listen to them, and that helps direct us to accomplish things better.
I guess it is a good idea to talk about the people that you're serving when you're trying to figure out what the program should look like, right?
Communication.
Yeah. You know, we lightly touched on this a little bit with Waymo, but one of the questions that we've got is we talked about consumers and fleets. Another huge part of the puzzle is the increased electrification of rideshare, right? Veloz's member, Uber is a huge part of that. How do y'all think about that in terms of that increased charging need and capacity planning, the number of EVs? Is that part of the whole puzzle? Do you work on that individually?
With the cities that RMI, oh, I'm sorry, Evan.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you go.
I was just going to share with the cities that RMI has been working with, it's been a little different just depending on what their scope is on this question. But part of it is understanding where trips are going, where these services are most often utilized. And that's an important part of the puzzle in terms of charging availability, because you don't want to leave anyone stranded that's relying on these services. And so we've done a few projects just to identify where charging deserts exist, where ride hailing is the highest, and matching that up with demographics to understand, okay, who's utilizing these services? Who would be impacted if all of a sudden charging isn't available, but these fleets go electric? And what is that going to do to the service? So that's an important thing to be thinking about as we're watching this shift to happen.
Awesome. And there is a lot more audience questions, but we are right at the end of time. So what I will say is I'm going to punt it back to Rosa and thank y'all so much. Bobby, I'll see you at Electric Drive later this summer.
Right. Well, as we wrap up our discussion for the day, I'd like to once again thank all of our panelists for joining us. It's been so wonderful having you all join our conversation, and we look forward to sharing the important work you'll be doing in the coming months. So have a great rest of your day. I also want to take a moment to heartily thank the generosity of Veloz member companies who provide the funding and thought leadership that allow us to put on our summits, digital dialogues, and other events. We invite you to become a member by reaching out to me directly or visiting the Join Us page on our website. All of our upcoming digital dialogues can be found on the events page of the Veloz website, and you can register for them today. We'll be announcing the executive speaker on this year's annual CEO Spotlight soon. And what I can say now is that it is a conversation you won't want to miss. Finally, I highly encourage all of you to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter for direct access to the programs. Veloz and our members are executing to advance clean transportation. For example, yesterday we shared an awesome segment we worked on with The Late Show with Seth Meyers that aired on Tuesday night about the benefits of EVs. My colleague Mooney is putting that link in the chat, so be sure to copy it before this webinar closes. And as a reminder to our audience, we will be sending out a recording of today's conversation, as well as a transcript through our newsletter. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already at the bottom of our homepage at veloz.org. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today and wish you all a great rest of your week.